Alright everybody, we're back with another video. Specifically today, we're covering Cenk Uygur and Hasan Piker talking about uniting with Nick Fuentes to have the far left and the far right unite to solve all of America's problems, because it seems like the middle on both political spectrums is just not working anymore. So we're going to play this clip. It's only a 5-minute clip, and it's Cenk and his nephew Hasan, they're just on a stream talking about these issues. And then we have a video where Nick talks about this as well. It's going to be really fun. Here we go.
So now we're left with two guys that are left. Tucker Carlson and, I'm going to say the word or the name, Nick Fuentes. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's I have stopped censoring that Nick Fuentes mentioned since he's getting fucking profiled by the New York Times, you know?
Yeah. So Tucker Carlson, I think, has a shot at actually meaning it. And so I'm not sure that I agree with you.
You and I have had a private conversation about this many years ago, and I think I've been vindicated on this.
I think I've been vindicated on it, but we can have that conversation in a minute. So to now go to, we'll come back to Tucker. You go to Fuentes, and so he seemed to be a classic guy who's, to be fair to him, not hiding his nationalism, right? So he was like, I'm going nationalist. I'm going Christian nationalist, white nationalist. It appeared to me, right? That was my original read of him. But now he's also changing. And so now I know we all cancel him to bejesus. And
I mean,
okay, Barry Weiss, if you're watching, which you obviously are,
Holocaust
right?
denier.
Right. So no problem. You deny the Holocaust. You say all these things.
What's always, and we're going to continue to get to the video, but I just don't understand what's wrong. What's like so sacrilegious for denying certain numbers when it comes to the Holocaust. No, nobody's denying that this thing actually existed, which is a horrible thing. But to deny that it was 6 million, what's the grave sin in saying you don't believe that 6 million were killed? I don't understand why this has been treated as dogma. But let's continue. That's an aside.
He's against race mixing. Well,
yeah.
I'm married to an Asian woman. What am I going to agree with that? Right. So obviously we're against all that. But even now he has realized that's not actually where his audience is. So whether it's Craven.
I think he's a grifter. I think these guys are all grifters.
Right. Whether it's Craven or not, whether they're grifters or not.
I personally don't think Tucker's a grifter. I don't think Nick is a grifter. Nick's been saying the same thing for almost a decade now.
Even Fuentes is now saying, he said it just like 2 days ago, you know what? Maybe we put aside the racism and the cruelty and the abuse, right? Which is an amazing admission, by the way, that kind of is the direction they were going, right? And he says maybe we put that aside to be able to unite with the left.
I don't believe any of these
I'm not saying
guys.
yes to Fuentes. I'm just saying look at the tide moving. The tide is moving towards populism because it's being driven by the audience. The audience wants real populism. So when they sense bullshit, they don't want it, and they're pushing in a better direction. So why is Tucker? Now, let's go to the heart of it.
What they're talking about is true. I mean, this is like the guaranteed kind of outcome that you were going to have once Donald Trump announced his election bid in 2015, right? He was running as a populist. He wasn't running as a Republican or a Democrat. When they asked all the Republican candidates on stage in 2015 in the primary, will you pledge your support for the Republican nominee if you lose? Trump was the only one that said no, and they all had their hands up. The Bush, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, all of them, Ben Carlson, had their hand up saying, yes, I will support the Republican nominee. Donald Trump was the only one that had his hand down and said, no, I would run as an independent. That was the first kind of populist wave that we had in this country, where we had a major political candidate running as a populist, running on these economic ideas, these ideas that it wasn't just to the left or to the right, the cookie cutter conservative or liberal ideals that you would run on if you were a Republican or a Democrat. No, like this was real change. This was something different. And Trumpism was always going to fizzle out if you kind of followed it to its conclusion, but what it has given rise to now is the far left and the far right, whether or not people wanted to admit it. And so Cenk and Hasan are on the far left, and they're talking about Nick, who's on the far right. They both want the same outcome. They both want America to prosper. They just have different ideas of getting there. Cenk and Hasan are progressives. They believe in a form of socialism. Nick is somebody that's on the far right. He's a nationalist. He's somebody that values nationalism and strong borders. And we're going to get to his video in a second, but it's very interesting to see how these people on the fringes are sort of opening up the idea. Cenk more so than Hasan, but I believe Hasan will get there because Hasan wants change. And it's interesting to see kind of them opening their minds a little bit and starting to lay the groundwork for possibly a potential truce. And I've been highly critical of Hasan in the past. You can look up a couple videos that I've done months ago, and I've been pretty much critical for the most part, because I don't agree with everything he says. I also don't agree with everything that Cenk says, but the idea that we're going to have a true unity thing going on in this country, because the moderates, for some reason, they've been in union with each other for, I'd say, the past 50, 60 years in getting nothing done. I mean, Congress, for example, the United States House of Representatives now has an approval rating of 14% because they're always in constant gridlock. They're always united on the fact that they're not going to get shit done. But the progressives on the left and the nationalists on the right, they actually have interesting solutions. So we'll continue this video, but just a thought to ponder.
Tucker, right? Why is Tucker, to me, today different than he was on Fox News? Because on Fox News, he worked for corporate media. And he says it now himself. He says, yeah, I mean, there were certain things we were allowed to say, not allowed to say. I regret a lot of the things that I said on there. So now he's more tethered to the audience than he is to Rupert Murdoch. And so he tries to serve his audience better.
This is a good point that Cenk makes up, by the way.
And now he says wrong about Iraq, right? Wrong about war overall, wrong about a bunch of things, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, have a lot of us on the left said as much as he has about all the things we're wrong about, right?
No, I don't say that at all.
See? So what my point is, not that he's right and we're wrong or anything along those lines, but he's at least making movements to go towards agreement.
You're saying that there's a broader trend line that's moving in the direction of left politics, and that is the reason why the likes of Tucker Carlson are retriangulating their messaging. That's somewhat understandable, but I do think that ultimately, I don't necessarily care for Tucker Carlson personally or Nick Fuentes, but I do care about changing the mindset of their audiences, because I find socially regressive politics to be, and reactionary politics to be, a distraction, and that anyone that does that to any degree is inherently reactionary and deliberately doing this because they want to move people's attention and focus away from the material inequities that they are facing and away from a steadfast approach to dealing with those problems. That is the reason why it's very easy for me to say all right-wingers in general are grifters, and even that moderation that they're engaging with is them simply reading the room and recognizing that they have to offer some kind of what you call populism, some kind of left-wing material solutions.
So let me say two things about that.
So obviously we know Hasan is diagnosing all of this populism on the right as being a symptom of people grifting. I really don't think you could say that about Fuentes. You can't really say that about Nick. He said the same thing for, like I said, almost a decade now. You could kind of give Tucker that characterization because he has changed his opinions, but I believe those changes are sincere. I believe now that he's fired from Fox, now that he isn't beholden to this corporate media structure, now that he's truly on his own, he has a greater incentive now to follow his heart. And he's admitted that he was wrong about the Iraq war, and just calling for it and calling for all of these wars in the Middle East. He's kind of had the ultimate humility in that regard. He talks about admitting that he was wrong, and he always admits when he's wrong. And you see somebody like Hasan Piker saying, yeah, we don't really do that on the left. We don't admit when we're wrong in these circumstances. And he accuses Tucker of doing this because he's grifting. Okay, but do you understand what I'm seeing? Because what I'm seeing is Cenk more so than Hasan. But Cenk is outlining kind of like a framework, a base to unite with the people on the right that want to unite and want to make change. Okay, so we have that clip. Well, now we have this clip, and this is Nick, and Nick is also talking about uniting with this progressive left and bringing together some kind of coalition, okay? And tell me if this does not sound relatively the same.
It's time to pound our fist on the table and say, it's our way or the highway. You've enjoyed the power and privileges for long enough. Where's ours? Where's our end of the bargain? So I love it. It's time to undermine the GOP. I said it in 2020. The GOP must be destroyed.
He's saying the GOP must be destroyed because over the past 50 years, I've talked about it on this channel. I'll continue to talk about it on this channel. The Republican Party, the modern day Republican Party, hasn't done anything. They've placated to the racist sympathies of their base to draw them up so they can vote for them. And then when they get in, for example, they don't do anything with this new power that they hold. Economically, for the border, for deportations, for anything. They don't make changes to be able to give people that voted for them a better opportunity, a better chance at the American dream. They don't do that. Nick is properly dissecting this right now.
To be utter, and yeah, they're going to say he's a Democrat. He wants the GOP to be destroyed. The GOP serves the interests. The GOP, as presently constructed, serves the interests, the special interests, the donors. Everybody knows that. It serves Silicon Valley and little tech. Palantir, Tesla, SpaceX, Anduril, Oracle. It serves Wall Street. That's why Ken Griffin gave them millions of dollars. It serves Miriam Adelson and the Israel lobby. This is who they work for.
So, like I said, again, he's properly dissecting the problem with the modern day GOP. And the Democratic Party is the same way. They're just beholden to a different power structure. They are beholden a lot still to the Israel lobby. Not as much as they were, but they're still very much beholden to the Israel lobby, and they're beholden to the foreign interest. You have people like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, for example, that are steadfast in support. They're complicit in their support for Israel still, and giving millions and millions of dollars to Israel, billions of dollars, to Israel. In conjunction with that, they are very much in support of giving all of these billions of dollars to Ukraine still in a war that doesn't really benefit us at all. And it doesn't seem to be like both of these factions, the majority factions in these parties, are fighting for us. And that's why somebody like Zohran Mamdani had so much success, specifically because he was talking about affordability. He was talking about things that modern day America, like middle class Americans, the rest of us, however much of us there are left, are feeling. Poor Americans are feeling. And it seems like nobody in the big coalitions in these parties understand that. So this is what he's properly dissecting. And then you'll see in this video, he's going to start to talk about uniting with the left.
This is who selects the cabinet. This is who makes the policy. That's why they cut the corporate tax rate and they did nothing else. That's why they're shielding illegal immigrants from deportation as long as they're working on farms or on construction sites or in hospitality. That's why they're still providing for H-1B visas. That's why they're still providing for Chinese students. That's why they back down on the tariffs. That's why they back down on everything.
Here it comes.
So this is the blueprint. This is how we take over. And by the way, hey, and get a load of this. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie working together.
Ro Khanna is a Democratic representative from California. Thomas Massie is a Republican representative from Kentucky. And they were able to work together, what Nick is talking about. They were able to work together to get the Epstein files, that bill passed in the House. So just a little aside.
Against the interests to compel the files. What do you think that has, a 90% approval rating? If you had progressive Democrats and nationalist Republicans working together, let's say to compel the release of the Epstein files, what kind of approval rating do you think that has? 90%?
Easily.
And what if they got together and they opposed foreign aid to Israel? What approval rating do you think that would have? 90%?
Easily.
What if they got together and worked on the basis of a common interest? Do you think that that Republicans or independents running under that brand, do you think that that would become more popular or less popular over time?
Easily more popular.
4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. It snowballs. And we need to propel someone into the White House that is just a populist. And here's where we're going to have to give. This is going to be the compromise. Very simple. The left has to give up immigration. That's simple. The left is going to have to give up. Look, we can have equity and we can have equality in the country. We can have civil rights. We can have all those things. But we have to close the damn borders. We have to close it. Too many illegal immigrants. Too many legal immigrants. That has to be the compromise. The left has to give on immigration, and the right has to give on the free market. If the right can come down on health care and on a social safety net and maybe on some subsidies for education, and if the left can come down on the anti-white open border stuff and they can agree that we have a country, that party will win 90% of the vote and rule for a century. That's the compromise. That's the populist compromise.
Notice what he's saying, populist compromise. This is the same thing that Cenk Uygur was saying. We are moving towards a populist compromise. And I don't know about you, but I would be willing to give up the free market as somebody that's more right-wing. I would be more than willing to give up the free market and give that win to the political left, the progressive left in this country. If we could get strong borders, have all of the illegal migrants, illegal immigrants here deported, and they could just cut down on the anti-white stuff. And like he's talking about, give the left the education subsidies, do all of those social programs, fund them, give them what they've been wanting for so long, and they can give us what we've been wanting for so long. The promise of Trump, the forgotten men and women of America. If they can converge on both of those ideas, give and take, right? That's all politics is. It's give and take. If we can do that, I personally would love to live in that country. I don't know how the social programs are going to work. I don't know how you kind of have that socialist-infused America. I know it works in China. But that, to me, when you have the political left and the political right that actually have a mindset of what they want to change in this country, and they don't want to just be in gridlock like the moderate left and the moderate right. If we had a country like that where the progressives and the nationalists work together, I truly think that is a country that I would love to live in. If we can agree, like Nick's talking about, if we can agree that we have a country and there's give and take there, then that would be huge. But anyway, okay, now there have been people that are critical of this, specifically Vivek Ramaswamy. So Vivek, that video, he quote tweeted that. And Vivek is somebody who is still on behalf of the establishment, likes to pander to different groups and pretend that he's not part of the establishment. But at the end of the day, he is a billionaire. He does have vested interest in making sure he retains his wealth. He made all his money. He made his billions of dollars specifically because he scammed people on the market, lied about a drug. He was at the head of this company. He was a CEO, head of a company that was working on Alzheimer's cure, a cure for Alzheimer's. And he sold that company when it was at the peak, and then when the investors found out that the drug was not working at all and it was a complete lie, it was a rug pull, the company lost all of its money and all of the people lost their positions. It was terrible, but he was able to do the same thing that Trump was able to do with his crypto rug pull earlier in the year with the Trump coin, when he made the majority, like 75, 80% of his wealth on that crypto pump and dump. It's the same exact thing. So Vivek, he tweets that. He quote tweets it rather. He goes, "A National Socialist American Workers' Party built around a shared ethnic identity. What could possibly go wrong?" And like, people are going to try and categorize it as this, but if you had these powerful forces, these very influential forces, like a Nick Fuentes, like a Tucker Carlson, uniting with people like a Hasan Piker, a Cenk Uygur, and a Kasparian, we're starting to see more and more. And I don't know about you, but I've been paying attention. And these people on the far right, the progressives on the far right, and the nationalists, or rather, progressives on the far left and the nationalists on the far right are starting to sound like each other. Have you noticed this? Specifically when talking about Gaza and Israel's occupation of Gaza and all of the innocent lives that they've taken. And then you start to hear about the economy, and really they're talking about the same thing. It pretty much sounds like the same thing with the little caveats here and there. But it gives me a lot of hope. And I personally want to live in the country that they're both talking about, both sides are talking about, because really they want the same thing with a few little tweaks in between. So this gives me a lot of hope, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future. But folks, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to this channel. Give the video a like. I really appreciate all the support. Also, check out our memberships. We're doing those as well. Tier 1 starts at 99 cents a month that you could financially contribute to the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.